Alright, now that we've exported all of our maps, we don't need to be in 3D Coat anymore. We're going to be moving on to Photoshop. So in Photoshop, I'm going to open up all of the, or most of the texture maps that we've just exported. So Control O, and I'll navigate to it here really quick. So I need the accent paint, the ambient occlusion, the dirt layer, the main paint, the metalness, the noise, and the roughness. It should be 7 textures total. Alright. Now as you see, we just had to open up 7 different textures in order to capture all of this information that we need for our shader. In game development, this would be very inefficient. Having to grab every single one of these textures individually would be very taxing on our system. We would need to make 7 references to these texture files in memory, which increases what's known as the amount of draw calls in your game at runtime. Now, if you know how to program shaders, or if you're like me, you only know how to use node-based shader editors, you can actually reduce this draw call count pretty drastically by combining a lot of these textures into 1 or 2 textures. And that's exactly what we're going to do, is we're going to combine them into just 2 textures. The reason why we can do that is you'll notice almost all of these are black and white images. Now, black and white images only have one channel. They only have their value. But a typical color texture map has 3 and possibly even 4 channels. You have red, green, blue, and alpha. Now, every single one of these channels is its own black and white image. So what we can do is we can combine 3 or 4 of these black and white images into one color texture. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'll go File, New, or just Control N, and I'll call this one Matte Mask. These are known often as mask textures. Now the size is going to be 2048 because that's the size that I textured it at in 3D Coat. I'll hit OK, and now we have a blank document. I'll hit Control Backspace in order to fill it with my background color, which is black. Now if you don't have black in here, you can either set it to black, or you can hit D, which will set some default colors, and then X, which will swap them out. I personally just like to have black as the background color and white as the foreground color, but it works the other way around. If it was the foreground color, you could hit Alt Backspace, and that would achieve the same result. Now in our matte mask, it's entirely black and we have no information in our red, green, or blue channels. We're going to fill those with our metalness, roughness, and ambient occlusion. So what I'll do is I'll go to my metal map, I'll hit Control A to select the entire document, and then Control C to copy it. I'll go to matte mask, and I'll select the red channel and Control V to paste that in. Now we have a very red texture. Next, I'll go to my roughness map. Control A, Control C, and then in matte mask, now in the green channel, Control V, and I'll paste it. And finally, I'll do the same thing for the ambient occlusion texture. And this one I'll paste into the blue channel. Now what we get at the end of this is we now have 3 unique color channels, and they give us this. Quite a psychedelic mess. But we're not interested in the final color result, we're only interested in these individual channels. So that's our material mask. Now I'm going to make another one. I'm going to call this paint mask. Once again, now that black is my foreground color, again it's Alt Backspace, we'll fill that with black. And this one we're going to need to take a slightly different approach to, just because it's a bit more complicated. I'll start with my accent paint. Now this one already has a color to it, but that's okay, because you'll notice, since I made this texture entirely pure red, if I look at my channels, the red channel is already very cleanly defined with no information in the green or blue channels. So that's what we want. So I'll copy this, I'll go to Paint Mask, and instead of pasting this into one of the channels, I'll paste it as a new layer. And then I can merge the two by hitting Control E or right-clicking Merge Down. Now you'll see our red channel is already defined and it didn't affect either of our other two channels. Now I'll go to Main Paint, but I can't use Main Paint exactly as it is, because remember, wherever it's white, we're going to be replacing the color of our diffuse map with a paint color. However, there's no indication of where the dirt is on this map. So we need to actually add in our dirt layer on top of this in order to mask out the paint where it's supposed to be covered by dirt. So I'll select my dirt map, I'll copy it, and I'll paste it as a new layer on my main paint texture. The next thing I need to do is this still needs to be a black and white map. So I need to make the dirt image here black and white. I can go to Image, Adjustments, Black and White, or Alt-Shift-Control-B. I'll just click it. And then I'm going to make it a bit darker. Make the reds and yellows a bit darker so that the dirt is closer to black. And the reason for that is that wherever it's black, no paint whatsoever will be showing through. Now, because our dirt texture was brown and not black, when we convert it to a black and white image, it's not going to come in as pure black, so we need to make some manual adjustments here. I'll hit Control L in order to bring up my levels adjustment, and I'll bring up the black point to make this a little bit darker. That should be enough. Then what I'll do, in order to apply this dirt mask to our paint layer, I'll change the blending mode of the layer to multiply. Now you see our paint layer is being masked out by the dirt. Now, I'll select this whole thing, but I can't just hit Control C because that will only copy the current layer. If I hit Control Shift C, that will copy everything you can see, including all of the applied blending modes. So that'll copy all of the layers together, and then I can go to my paint mask and apply that into the green channel. Now finally, I'll grab our noise texture, copy that, and put that into the blue channel. Now we have two mask textures that we can use in our node-based shader. So I'll export these out real quick. Save as. And I like to save them as targas. So here we go, underscore matte mask. And in this case, I'm going to save them as 24 bits per pixel. And the reason for that is that 32 bits per pixel is if you have an alpha channel. This will make your image file a little bit larger, but it will give you a fourth texture channel to work with if you had something else that you needed masked out by a texture channel. Like maybe if we had some lights on the ship and we wanted a texture mask in order to define what areas of our material should be emissive, you may want a fourth texture channel here. We don't, however, so to keep our image as small as possible, I'm going to limit it to 24 bits per pixel. And I'll do the same thing here. So now it is time to bring these textures into Unity and make our node-based shader.